All right, so get this. So we're going deep on 44.01 today. They're doing some really cool stuff in climate tech. Basically, they're taking carbon removal to a whole new level. We're talking turning CO2 into actual rock.
Wow, okay, that's a new one.
Yeah, right. We've got recent news on investments, some background on the company itself, and details on some of their projects.
Sounds like a good deep dive.
It's going to be fascinating, so let's jump in. 44.01 just closed their Series A funding round and raked in a cool $42 million. You get this, $5 million of that just came in last week.
Whoa, that's serious money, especially for a Series A. Investors must be pretty confident in what they're doing.
Exactly. And it's not just it's the names involved. We're talking Equinor Ventures, Amazon's Climate Pledge Fund,
Yeah.
and even Breakthrough Energy Ventures.
Those are some major players in the investment world. They're all about climate solutions, so this is a big deal for 44.01.
For sure. And let's not forget Shorooq Partners. They're the leading venture capital firm in the MENA region, and they've been with 44.01 since the early days. So the question is, why are all these big global players so interested in an Omani startup?
Well, it all comes down to their tech. It's pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, their mineralization process, it's what everyone's buzzing about.
It's pretty wild. They capture CO2,
Mm-hmm.
dissolve it in water, and then inject it deep underground into a specific rock formation called peridotite.
Like a peridotite. We've talked about rocks before, but what's so special about this one?
It's all about the chemical makeup of peridotite. It naturally reacts with the CO2 and water, and that reaction basically turns the CO2 into a solid mineral. It literally becomes part of the rock.
So they're not just storing the CO2, they're actually transforming it. That's amazing. And how long does this whole process take?
That's the really impressive part. The CO2 is locked away permanently in less than 12 months, way faster than most other carbon capture methods.
Wow, that is fast. So we're talking about a real long-term solution here. But I'm picturing some huge industrial operation. Is that what it looks like?
Actually, one of the best things about 44.01's approach is that it's relatively simple. They're using a natural process with readily available resources, and the result is a totally permanent solution to a huge problem.
So it's more about harnessing nature's power than building a giant complex. I like that. But how do they get all that CO2 in the first place?
They're doing it two ways. First, they capture CO2 directly from industrial emissions, things like power plants, manufacturing facilities.
So stopping it right at the source. That makes sense? What's the second way?
They work with companies that specialize in direct air capture. That's tech that literally sucks CO2 right out of the atmosphere.
So they're dealing with emissions both at the source and what's already out there. This is getting more interesting by the minute. But let's circle back to those investors. Why is Shorooq Partners so keen on 44.01? They must see something really special.
Well, Shorooq has actually said they see 44.01 as a company with transformative potential. They're calling it a safe, permanent, and scalable solution.
Those are some powerful words. What exactly do they mean by that?
Think about it. 44.01 is tackling a global problem, climate change, and they have tech that could be used on a massive scale that's got to be attractive to any investor, especially one like Shorooq who wants to back companies making a global impact.
That definitely makes sense, but we're just scratching the surface here. We still need to dig into the details of 44.01's projects and how they're putting this incredible tech into action. I guess we'll have to save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Definitely. There's a lot more to explore with 44.01, so let's get into some of those real-world projects. Where are they actually using this mineralization process?
Well, one of their biggest projects is over in the UAE. They're working with ADNOC, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company.
Right. Their pilot program in Fujairah has been getting a lot of attention. They mineralized 10 tons of CO2 in just 100 days. It's proof that the concept actually works in the real world.
10 tons in 100 days. That sounds like a lot. But how much is that really?
Think of a big truck fully loaded. That's about 10 tons of CO2.
Okay, so they basically took a truckload of CO2 and turned it into stone in just a few months.
Exactly. And they didn't just capture any CO2, they used seawater to dissolve it before injecting it underground. It's safe and permanent storage.
That's pretty impressive. So it's good for the environment and it works. But is this just a one-time thing or are they planning to do more?
Oh, they're definitely scaling up. The next phase of the Fujairah project aims to inject over 300 tons of CO2.
Wow, that's a huge increase.
It's in line with the UAE's big climate goals.
Right. The UAE wants to capture 10 million tons of CO2 per year by 2030. 44.01 could be a big part of making that happen.
Absolutely. And it sounds like they're not stopping with the UAE.
Yeah, they're looking at projects in Oman and even Norway.
Norway's a leader in carbon capture, so that's a smart move.
It fits with what we were talking about earlier, their global ambitions. But let's go back to Shorooq Partners for a minute. What do you think really attracted them to 44.01?
Well, one thing could be their focus on keeping costs down. Their process uses natural reactions and resources like peridotite and seawater.
So it's not some super expensive, energy-intensive process.
Right, and that's key. If carbon removal is going to work on a large scale, it has to be affordable, not just scientifically possible.
That's a good point. It has to make sense economically.
And 44.01 seems to have found that sweet spot. They're tackling a huge global problem with tech that's both effective and affordable.
It's great to see a company from Oman making such a big impact internationally. But there's one thing I'm still curious about. We've talked about the what and the how, but what about the why? What drives the people behind this company?
Yeah, the human side of things is always important. I think learning about the founder's story could give us some insights.
Okay, so let's talk about the founder, Talal Hassan. What's his story? What made him start 44.001?
Well, his background is actually pretty interesting. He comes from the oil and gas industry.
Oh, wow, really? You wouldn't necessarily expect someone from that world to be a leader in carbon removal.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be the opposite. But Talal's talked about how seeing the effects of climate change in Oman firsthand, it really made him want to find solutions.
That makes sense. You know, sometimes seeing the problem up close, it can really light a fire under you. So was there a specific aha moment for him, or was it more gradual?
It sounds like it was a few things coming together. He was working in energy, seeing the impact it was having, and at the same time, the world was starting to really focus on sustainability.
So he saw a chance to be part of the solution instead of the problem. That's some serious forward thinking.
And the smart thing is, he didn't just throw away his knowledge of oil and gas. He figured out how to use that experience for this new challenge.
That's a great point. Sometimes experience in one field can be super valuable in another. You don't always have to start from zero.
Exactly. I think that's what's so cool about Talal's journey. He found a way to bridge the gap between traditional energy and climate tech.
He's taking the best of both worlds to build a more sustainable future. I really admire that kind of thinking outside the box.
And it's not just about the technology, it's about their whole approach. 44.01 isn't trying to make the oil and gas industry the bad guy. They're working with companies like ADNOC to find solutions together.
That's so important. It's about working together to tackle climate change, not pointing fingers.
Yeah, everyone needs to be on board, including investors like Shorooq Partners. They're crucial for supporting these new companies.
Right. At the beginning, we talked about all the global investors who are now backing 44.01. They obviously believe in this technology and the people behind it.
Absolutely. And when you combine a game-changing solution with a passionate and experienced team, you're setting yourself up for success.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot today. The science, the investments, the founder's journey. It's been fascinating.
It really has. It's amazing to see a company from Oman making such a big impact worldwide.
It really is. And for our listeners who are as excited about 44.01 as we are, I encourage you to go learn more about what they're doing and about the whole field of carbon removal tech. Maybe you'll even find your own way to join the fight against climate change.
That's a great takeaway. We can all play a part in building a more sustainable future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of 44.01. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.